Ooh, it's Christmas in May. Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and welcome to my weekly vlog for Monday, May the 3rd, 2021, vlog number 215, and it's 418th day of COVID. So let's jump right into things. I have been experimenting with fiber art. Yes, I got a book. Well, actually, let me back up. I was watching my YouTube videos, as I usually am, and on one of my YouTube videos, a lady was being interviewed who's a fiber art artist. Her name is Wen Redmond, Redmond, R-E-D-M-O-N-D, and she's very famous for her textile art wall hangings. And she has developed a technique which kind of combines mixed media with fabric arts, which really appealed to me because I'm always looking for ways to combine all of my hobbies so that they interlace with each other and create something new. Well, what she does is, and I'm going to talk about this in more detail on the Idiot Quilter, but she basically takes a piece of tearaway stabilizer, which is something you use in embroidery, coats it in a light modeling paste to make some texture, and there's various techniques to do that. Again, I'll talk about this on the Idiot Quilter this week. And then she adds color to it, adds some other materials to it, and then she puts it through her inkjet printer. Yes, it has modeling paste, and for those of you that don't know what modeling paste is, it's basically like plaster of Paris, except it's a little bit more refined, and artists use it all the time to add texture to canvases, to their paintings. We use it in the art journaling world a lot when we're making backgrounds, but it tends to be a little bit thick. It's raised up from your substrate, and so you can't really put it through your printer. Oh yes, you can, if you use her technique with this. And when you're done putting it through that and printing your images on top of it, you have something that has a very artsy, very textured look to it. And then from there, you essentially have a fabric, per se, that you can now stitch up into whatever you want. Now, she makes wall hangings, and that's what I'm doing with it. I don't think this technique would be very good for making a quilt because you essentially are not printing on fabric. You are creating this fabric, and it's not going to stand up to a machine washing. So this is for things that are more arty, more home decor-ish, wall art kind of a thing. So I got her book, I ordered her book, I also downloaded her DVD, which used to come out on a DVD. She did a course in this, and you could buy the DVD, but nobody does DVDs anymore, so now it's you pay for it and you download it. It wasn't very expensive, cost me about $11 Canadian, but very informative. So I bought the book as well, and again tomorrow I'm going to talk about it in a little bit more detail in Idiot Quilter. And I've started working my way through this. Now, this is my first experiment with this technique. So these squares in the center, the 4 squares in the center, have all been done using her technique. And I know in the video it is very difficult to see, but there is texture if you look closely. Then, after I created those, I took them to my embroidery machine and did some embroidery machine quilting on each square, just a single sort of motif. And on 2 of them, I added these flowers as well, the pink flowers. Then I put the 4 of them together, stitched them together, added these borders, did some straight line quilting on the border, and backed it. There's the backing with my label on it. And now I have a wall hanging. Now, am I pleased with the result? Well, yes and no. This was an experiment. I'm just grabbing scraps, and I was doing things off the top of my head. I wasn't putting any planning in it because what I was more interested in doing was trying this technique and seeing what I could do with it. So my color scheme and that kind of thing are really not well planned out. However, now that I know what success I could have with that, I'm working on a little different piece, on a larger piece, and this one I am thinking of. So here's what I have so far. Now, I printed those 4 spots in the center using her method, I created this image for each one, and I'm doing a variation of the image you can see on a couple of them. And then I stitched them together, but I bordered them with something called an attic window technique. So you've got this three-dimensional look to it. And then I bordered it with this butterfly fabric, because if you look real close, and I know it's difficult to see, there are butterflies in each of those little parts in the windows. So now what am I going to do with it? Well, now what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to layer it with batting, put a backing on it, and then I'm going to do a little bit of quilting. I'm not absolutely sure what that's going to look like. It'll probably be more out into the borders and things like that. Probably something very simple. And then I've got a wall hanging. So using this technique. So I'm really pleased with this. I think it turned out quite nice, or is turning out quite nice. And it's something, as I said, that puts together my world of mixed media and my world of quilting in one. So I have not finished reading her book yet. I've only skimmed the surface of it. She has other techniques in that book as well. So I'm going to explore that further and maybe make some more pieces using that method. So I thought that was really interesting. And if you're interested in that, and you do not have to be someone who sews or quilts, you could do this. You can do this on cardstock. I tried, and it does work. The same technique will work on cardstock. But as I said, if you're interested and you want to know more about it, I will be talking about it more extensively tomorrow on the Idiot Quilter, and I'm in the process of making a video tutorial about how I created that last wall hanging that you just saw, and that will be up on my channel sometime in the very near future. I'm not quite done that yet because I haven't quite finished that piece yet. So that was kind of exciting this week, which also diverted my attention away from the other two quilts that I'm making. And I talked about those last week, and I'm no further ahead than I was last week with those. I mean, I think I've made a couple more of the embroidered flower blocks for the one quilt. And I have started piecing more of the strong and free Canadian quilt as well, but I have nothing really to show you for any of those things. So we carry on. All right, so that takes us to the YouTube channel of the week. This is, I think this might be the last of the series of the guys who did the YouTube hop that are all DIYers and crafters. And this one is called the Crafty DIY Guy. This week's YouTube channel is called The Crafty Guy, and this is the last one in my series of men who do crafting on YouTube. This gentleman does all kinds of different things with DIY products that he picks up at thrift stores and at Dollar Tree and other places like that. He shows you some very interesting ideas, and also he's very quirky, so it keeps you entertained as he shows you how to do these various crafts and DIYs. He does have a little bit of a claim to fame as being someone who's been on television or on series, things like that. I think they're just bit parts. But if you're looking for something a little bit different, some more inspiring ideas, then check out the Crafty DIY Guy. So the link for the Crafty DIY Guy is in the show notes below. The latest link to Stephen and Walter Live are in the show notes below as well. The Idiot Quilter episode 112 is there. So Chatty episode 6 is there, and that's we did the Janome 550E embroidery machine review, and luckily the same day that I was about to do the So Chatty episode, my actual Janome 550E embroidery machine came in at Ultimate Sewing, so I went and picked that up just minutes before we put together the So Chatty episode 6. So that was a serendipitous event. And there's also we did Art Journal group, my monthly group that gets together so we share our projects and things. That happened on Sunday. And I have the recorded version of that Zoom meeting up on the channel as well if you're interested. I know it can be a little boring watching other people who know each other talking about what they create. However, there are always a whole lot of new products that are being informally reviewed there that people have picked up the month before. And there is also a lot of tips and tricks and just inspirational ideas. So, you know, I would suggest you watch it for those alone. Have a little notepad or your note thing in your iPhone opened up or something like that, because I think you will glean a lot of very useful information. You can also fast forward through it too. You know, you don't have to sit there and listen to the chatter all the way through. Although, because I'm moderator of that particular group, I do try to keep us on topic, and everybody in the group is very good at staying on topic as well. So it's really jam-packed with inspirational ideas and tricks and techniques. So check it out. Okay, so that takes me to what's pissing me off this week. Well, I am and I'm not pissed off. I have to go back for a second and talk about my mother, okay? Usually I save that for later on in this broadcast, but I'm going to talk about my mother right now because this directly involves her. We got the call last week that my mother was going to be moved into the new nursing home on Saturday, on May the 1st. Great. That meant, though, that I had to cut off her television and telephone service through the provider that we have here in our area, which is Bell Canada. And I can't transfer it to her new home because the new home has an agreement with the other rival company here in Ontario called Rogers, which is fine. I don't care. I don't like either one. But, you know, when the two of them are basically big monopolies, what can you do, right? And the one advantage of her moving into the new home and having Rogers is that they look after the billing, and the home does. It'll just be on her monthly bill for her residents. And that makes life a little bit easier for me. Plus, they already have all the connections and everything in the building, and so I think they're going to look after setting that all up. Well, that's great. So I just hate dealing with Bell because it doesn't matter how simple this task is, they make it extremely complex. First of all, you've got to call them. First of all, I tried to avoid the call. I tried to do it through their chat system online. Yeah, no, because it's a sales thing, I had to phone the number. So I phoned the number. Now you know what that means. You're going to be sitting on hold for 3 days listening to a horrible Muzak that cuts in and cuts out all the time. Well, before you get to the Muzak part, you have to get through the menu system. Oh, they don't want you to talk to a human being, obviously, by the way the menu system works. Press this if you want that. Press this if you want this. Press this if you want this. And then you press the button, it takes you to another subdirectory and the same thing. So 5 minutes later, you finally get to the bottom of it all, and that's when the Muzak happens. So I was prepared for this. It's basically a waste of a half day of my time by the time I'm done with these things. So I went through all of this and I sat in the line. Well, I got somebody fairly quickly. And they were somebody who spoke English without too much of an accent. So, you know, I'm sorry if that sounds a little bit racist, but that's the fact. You know, I think it's ironic that a communication company like Bell hires people for their customer service on the phone who do not speak English as their first language, who have a heavy accent, which is no fault of theirs. But that's the reality of it, and you can't understand them. But no, this one I could. So we did go through a lot of things. First, I have to do the security check, you know, and they want to know things like, okay, your account number, I get that. And then there's your mailing address, and then there's your telephone number. Okay, I get all that. Then there's, what was the last payment on your bill? So I know they're going to ask those questions, so I open up all that stuff. I do it paperlessly. I don't get a bill from them every month. Everything's automatic, you know, goes out of the bank account and the whole bit. So I go online, find my account online. I pull up both my mother's telephone bill and mine because everything is sort of semi under my name because I look after all my mother's bills, but she does have a separate account. So I looked that up in anticipation. So when she asked me that, I went, yes, it's this amount right there. Bing, bing, bing. Okay, I'm thinking, hey, I'm doing well here. The next big problem is you have to explain to them that she's in a nursing home. The concept of nursing home on some of these people that answer the phone at Bell seems to go right over their head. Well, it's not that I don't think they understand what a nursing home is. It's just not on their script or form that they have to be filling out as you are making your request. And that throws them for a loop. But this one actually, she seemed to know what she was doing. So I thought, this is great, wonderful. So jumped through another few flaming hoops, but we got it all arranged, got it all done, said I don't want it cut off until May the 1st, the Saturday, basically at the last minute. My mother was supposedly being moved into the new nursing home. Notice I said the word supposedly? At 8:30 in the morning, May the 1st. Okay, so we had that all set up, all ready to go. I had talked to my mother that week, and I knew about the move, so I told her what I was doing with Bell, with her TV and her telephone service, and I talked to her about, I said to her, Mom, you're going to have a bit of a chaotic day on Saturday, but you just, don't worry about a thing. Everything is set up for you. They're going to look after everything. They'll get you all established. Nothing for you to worry about. You're going into a brand new facility, a brand new, spanking new, got that new nursing home smell room in there. No one's ever been in the room before because you're the first occupant, and it's lovely. And I saw pictures of it online. And if you're curious too, in Stephen and Walter Live yesterday, we took you on a virtual tour of the new facility. So anyways, she's all prepped to go. We got it settled. I'm thinking this is going to be smooth. No. I get a phone call Friday afternoon telling me that the move isn't going to happen. You see, they're amalgamating a couple of nursing homes that are near my mother's nursing home together into the new nursing home because they're going to tear those ones down and rebuild as time goes by. Well, one of those nursing homes had a small population in it, about 60 people, something like that. I don't know if all those people opted to go to the new home or not, but anyways, they'd already had moved them in, as far as I know. In the process, they had an outbreak of COVID. One person. So they weren't taking any chances moving in the rest of the residents. In my mother's nursing home, and this is all under the umbrella of this one sort of not-for-profit corporation that runs this. They've been really good, as you know, keeping my mother safe, and they want to continue to do so. And I certainly do not blame them for that at all. That is excellent policy. Our government could learn a few things from these people. So they weren't moving her in on Saturday. They're going to wait until everything was back to normal with the other residents. In the meantime, there's been 3 more cases, so there are now 4 cases of COVID in the brand new nursing home. It does make me, this is a little digression here from my topic, but it does piss me off that COVID got into the nursing home after all the hell that the nursing homes have been in across this province. And they got the shot first. So how did this happen? Of course, they're not telling you. They're not saying. They know how it got in there. They do. But they're not telling us this. Did a staff member bring it in? There's no one can go in and visit except essential caregivers. Did an essential caregiver give it to somebody? Did somebody in the nursing home opt out of getting the shot? Which is stupid. I don't care how old they are. Unless they have so many medical complications that this is going to be a danger to them, then no, you can't opt out of this. And if it's a staff member who opted out of it, even worse. Because as I said on Stephen and Walter Live yesterday, I don't care. Nurses and staff who work with the elderly, part of their job is to make sure they keep the elderly safe, and that means keeping themselves safe as well, and that means right now getting the vaccine shot. If they intentionally said no, for whatever reason, I'm not getting the shot, they're in the wrong business. Get out. And if I was the administrator of one of those homes and I had that, I would fire them. Or it would be for them to come back to work they would have to have proven that they had gotten the vaccine. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel about it. You know, it's like, I know a lot of nurses who don't get the flu shot. No, I don't care what a nurse says to me. You're working with sick people. You need to be protect yourself so you can protect others. I mean, there is no debate here, and I will not debate it. So save your comments, because I'm just going to ignore them if it's about that. But anyways, getting all riled up about something I wasn't supposed to be getting riled up about. So back to the situation. So I get the call, I find this out, and I go, oh, crap. I said, now I knew the answer to this before I even asked the question, so in a sense it was a stupid question. Do you know when you are going to move them in? Well, of course they don't, because it's going to be a minimum of 2 weeks that they're keeping them away from those other people. I think it'll be over a month before the move happens. So that means my mother needs to have her television and her telephone service reconnected. So I immediately got onto the phone to Belle, and of course I went through all the flaming hoops again. Got a person, again, I got a person though, this time had a slight accent, but no problem. I understood everything she was saying. She seemed to be very efficient and seemed to know what she was doing. It still took me about half an hour, but she seemed to know what she was doing. So that impressed me, because 2 phone calls in a week to Belle, expecting the worst, and from past experiences. So I don't know if I just lucked out and I got the people who did know how to do their job, or Belle has smartened up and is training and hiring people that are clear communicators and know what they're doing. I don't know. I'm hoping that's the case. But anyways, so I had to explain to her all the stuff about canceling it, why I was canceling it, and why I wanted it reconnected. So everything got done. It got reconnected. Then after I got off the phone from Belle, I had a horrible thought. Did the staff at the nursing home already unplug her TV set in the box that connects it to the system and the whole thing? Is that all been disconnected by them? Because there could be a problem. So I immediately sent off an email to one of the administrators there. And luckily, they said no, they hadn't done anything. So everything was fine. So that's great. Now, when I talk to my mother tomorrow, I'll tell her about this whole situation and ask her, is your TV working? And I'll get this answer. Well, I don't know. I think so. Working in a vacuum here. But anyways, so I didn't really need the hassle, but that figures, doesn't it? It's very frustrating. But, you know, thankfully, my mother's home is still keeping her safe and protected. And by not moving her into this other place that has the outbreak, that's the right thing to do. And so I fully agree with that. So I had to put up with a little frustration with a service company. Not the first time, but everything right now is all copacetic. Ooh, I've used 2 big words today. I'm very proud of myself. Serendipitous and copacetic. Oh, geez. Retired English teacher. Yeah, still got it. Okay, so that's all that I'm really pissed off about this week. It's not really a pissed off, it's a minor annoyance, but, you know, it's done. What can you do? Okay, let's move on, shall we? To product review. What have I bought new? Well, I have a lot of things on order, but I haven't received any of those yet, with the exception of that book I was talking about for the Fiber Arts. I am using my new lights. I did last week, but when I looked back on the video, I thought that might have been a little bit too bright, so I have put a different filter on the 2 lights. It's still annoying me that I get this reflection off on my glasses, but I've been playing with them, and I just can't see. If I turn my head, if I look down like this, you don't get it. But that looks stupid. So sorry about that. I can see without my glasses, okay? I had cataract surgery done, almost 10 years ago now. And they put my actual prescription lenses in my eyes. But when you have cataract surgery and they do that, you have a choice. Do you want to be able to read without glasses, or do you want to be able to drive without glasses? In other words, the lenses that are in my eyes compensate for distance, but I need reading glasses in order to well, look at my computer screen and to read. And as time has gone on, I've noticed that I rely on these much more, to the fact that I'm pretty much wearing them all day. So, I mean, yes, no glare, and you get to see my beautiful blue eyes, but I can't see my notes. So, glare it is. That's funny. Glare it is. All right, never mind. It's early here. Okay, so I've also got some microphones on order. If you watch the latest issue of, or latest episode of So Chatty, both Walter and I are in there, but we only have one microphone, and I'm wearing it, okay, at the time. And it is a wireless microphone. This one is not wireless. It's plugged in. That's a story for another day. Maybe I'll do a segment one time showing you how I make videos, because you'll laugh. I'm a little bit amateurish, at least. Well, my equipment is not that sophisticated. But someone noticed, and I knew this was going to happen. Walter has a tendency to talk right down here when we're on a video. That is not his normal speaking voice. I have no trouble hearing Walter in the house most times, but for some reason he gets on camera and he starts to talk like this. So he needs to be mic'd when we do things together. So I've ordered a couple of sets of dual microphones. One is corded and the other one is wireless. Now, I didn't want to spend an arm and a leg on systems, because you can get, like, you can pay $150, $200, $300 and up for wireless microphone systems. I'm not prepared to spend that kind of money on something like that at this moment in time. So I found a couple of sets that were a little under $20. That may be a mistake, but that I'm going to try out and see if I can solve that problem. So when you're doing videos, there's a lot of things you need to consider. Okay, so anyways, hopefully those will come in another week, and maybe that will solve my problem with miking Walter. Okay, so that's on order. What have I got? Fabric on order. I even have some crafting supplies on order. Yes, I have not bought crafting supplies in quite a while, but Class Act, my local crafting store here in Whitby, and you've heard me talk about Class Act before. She was having a big sale on Saturday, because Saturday, May the 1st, was National Scrapbooking Day. I don't know if you knew that or not. I kind of forgot about that, but, you know, because I don't scrapbook anymore. But anyway, she was having everything you bought 15% off. So there were a couple of things that I needed, and I want to support Carol's store too. In fact, I've been feeling very guilty that over the last, well, over COVID and the whole bit, I have not been ordering things from Carol. I just have such a stash of stuff that I don't need anything. And so this gave me an opportunity to support her store, get a discount at the same time. So I imagine I'll get a call today or tomorrow that my stuff is ready for curbside pickup, and I'll go down and I'll pick that up. So I've ordered that. I ordered a whole bunch of fabric from Ultimate Sewing because they just got a new line in. Walter told me about it. He bought some of it as well for shirt making, but I really like the stuff. So I've ordered it as well. And so that'll probably be a pickup tomorrow, curbside pickup. And what else have I got on order? More filament for my 3D printer, which you can hear running in the background. I ordered a special ruler for a pattern I want to try. So yeah, I got a whole lot of stuff out there. And you know what my motto is? A day without Amazon delivery is a day without sunshine. So there's going to be a lot of sunshine coming up. Okay, so that takes us to stories about my grandmother. This one is a food story. Now, if you think back, I told you the story about my grandmother and pancakes and why I don't like corn syrup anymore. Well, a couple of other things my grandmother was famous for making is what I want to talk about today. In my family, as a kid growing up, and this was because of my grandmother, we would say to my mother when she made mashed potatoes, which mashed potatoes, or what we might call as smashed potatoes now, was a staple in my family. We had mashed potatoes pretty much every dinner time. My mother would boil some potatoes, she'd mash them, we had mashed potatoes. Walter loves mashed potatoes. If you give him a choice between what type of potatoes that he wants, 9 times out of 10, he will say mashed potatoes. I don't know why he is so hung up on mashed potatoes. Maybe his mother didn't make mashed potatoes. I'll have to ask him that as a kid. But he loves mashed potatoes. I think more or less it's his Dutch roots. The Dutch people like to take stuff and mash it up and mix it in with their mashed potatoes. It kind of looks gross. But I think that's why he likes mashed potatoes, especially when we're eating something like spinach or kale. He likes to like muck those two things together and throw a little gravy on it, and away you go. Dog's breakfast is what I call it. But anyways, so when my mother made mashed potatoes, we would always say to her, "Are those creamy mashed?" Because of my grandmother. Now, my grandmother loved to cook mass quantities. She never wanted anybody going hungry in her household, and there was no way you could go hungry in my grandmother's household. She made more food than enough. There might be like my family and my grandfather and her, so 7 of us at a table. There'd be enough food for 70 every time. You came out of away from my grandmother's table absolutely, completely bloated. But one of the things she was famous for making was creamy mashed, as we called it. So here's the recipe for creamy mashed potatoes. You need a mix master, if you know what that is. My grandmother had a great big old Sunbeam mix master with the big bowl, and she would boil her potatoes, and then while they were hot, she'd drain them, throw them in the mix master. Put down the beater bars or blades and get it going. So it's smashing up those potatoes in there. Then she'd dig out her butter. She didn't just put a dollop in. My grandmother put in a ½ pound of butter into this mixture. Yeah, literally. And so it's whipping away, butter in the potatoes. Now comes the milk. My grandmother did not use skim milk. She did not use 2%. She used homogenized, the whole thing. And she would dump in a ½ gallon. In those days it was in gallons. We hadn't gone to metric yet. Into that. So there you had the slop. And she would beat that crap with the Sunbeam Mixmaster out of those potatoes. So when she served them, she'd use a great big spoon, dig them out, and they'd go splat on your plate. Because they were kind of runny. Not completely runny though. For some reason they did have a little bit of consistency to them, but they were creamy. There was no two ways about them. Heart attack on a plate. So that's why whenever I serve mashed potatoes or Walter makes mashed potatoes, I always refer to them as, I say, because it's a bit of a joke, are those creamy mashed potatoes? So yeah, my grandmother definitely was not into low-fat cooking. The other thing she used to make, on Sunday mornings, if we were there for a weekend, on Sunday mornings, my grandmother would make eggs. You had to have eggs. My grandmother believed that you should have eggs every morning for breakfast. And when we were staying at my grandmother's, we did. She would make us poached eggs. Now, a lot of people stay away from making poached eggs because there's a bit of a trick to them. Because you just don't dump an egg, crack it into a pot of hot water, because your whites will all go all over the place and whatnot. And there's different methods for making poached eggs. Swirling the water one way, and as it's swirling, dropping the egg into the vortex of the swirl, and that makes all the whites, commingle around so it comes out perfect. Other people say you slide the egg into the pot of water where it's just under a boil. Some people put vinegar in their water first before they put the eggs in and swear that that keeps the whites together with the yolks and all that kind of thing. I don't know if my grandmother used any of those tricks. All I remember are two great big huge pans sitting on top of the stove, water boiling, and her taking out 24 eggs and making 24 poached eggs. And she made sure that we all had at least 3 to 4 of those eggs. Because as far as my grandmother was concerned, eggs were the wonder food. They were great for you. You should have eggs every day. Now, of course, as the years went by, we all found out about cholesterol and things like that. And, and the verdict is still out as to whether eggs really contribute to your overall cholesterol or not. I have a feeling that they probably do if you eat 24 of them at a sitting. But my grandmother wasn't worried about those. As far as she was concerned, you were going to be well fed, and part of that being well fed was to have those eggs. Those were important. Of course, we weren't just eating eggs at breakfast. We had toast, we had jam, we had peanut butter. She used to buy peanut butter in 5-gallon pails. It's called Jack and Jill. It literally came in a pail. I remember it. I don't think it's available anymore. Came in a tin pail, and she always had that. Lots of it. And of course, she'd always have lots of other things to go along with everything. So, I mean, you were very well fed. You only needed that one meal in a day, really, to sustain you. But when you're at my grandmother's, no, you had 3 meals a day, all like enough to feed a herd of cattle. And then there were snacks. I mean, you had to have a snack, between brekkie and lunch, between lunch and dinner, and then after dinner. And there was always dessert. Always dessert. My grandmother used to make vanilla pudding. My father swore by it. And I remember as a kid, she would make a great big vat of vanilla pudding. And sometimes she'd slice up bananas in it as well. So it became banana vanilla pudding. And I remember that was really, really good. And my grandmother loved her cake, and she would make cakes and pies. Now, she didn't make the pies. She used to make pies, but there was a local bakery in her town, a little bakery, and that's where she'd go every week, and she would stock up on pies, and I mean stock up. We have old pictures of my mother and my grandmother coming back from going down to this particular bakery, and they're coming home, and their arms are loaded up with those white boxes with string around them, and there's a pie in each box. And she would buy a coconut cream, a raisin, and some kind of fruit pie, and several of all those. At least it seemed like she had a whole bake shop in her house when I was a kid. And one of my favorite food groups, probably my favorite food group, is pie. I love pie. I could just eat pie and nothing else. Of course, I wouldn't be able to see out of my eyes. But yeah. So, food for my grandmother was a form, I don't know if it was therapy or what it was, but she really felt that the way to make someone feel happy, feel comfortable, was food. And not just the food, though. The family table at my grandmother's was always a place where there would be conversation. It wasn't just eating, it was talking. And I really liked that tradition. When I have people over for dinner, when I could have, I will, and sometimes Walter has to pull me away from it, because I will sit at that table with my guests and talk. I really like that. Walter and I do make a point of sitting down during the week, and we have a sit-down dinner, always together. We always have. We've always eaten together, because that's when you talk, too. In my own family, when I was growing up, the kitchen table was the center of family conversation. And then when we all grew up and, got married, moved out on our own, all that kind of stuff, we would come back to my parents' house on a Sunday evening, and we would have a family dinner. And we would sit for hours around that table, talk, laugh. And, that was a tradition that my grandmother had done with us, and we carried it on. My parents carried it on, and I carried it with me to this day. So, warning, if you ever come to my house for dinner, be prepared to be sitting around my dining room table for hours. There'll be lots of wine, though, so don't worry. After a while, you'll just go to sleep. So anyways, that's another story about my grandmother, her creamy mashed and her poached eggs, and her whole relationship with food. And so next week, more stories about my grandmother. There's some really weird ones. I think next week we're going to talk about her weird religious system. Okay, so that takes us to the 3D corner. And I've been making several things here. One of the things that I made, and I think I was telling you about this, but I haven't finished. This is my sewing caddy. So this has everything that I usually reach for. My most frequently used equipment. So I put this all together. It's all glued down to this tray that I made, all 3D printed, little sewing machine right here. And this works out really well. Beauty of something like this is it's portable in the sense that if I move, when I do my quilting, for example, I will move my sewing machine and everything into the rec room because it's a bigger space so I can spread out the quilt. Well, some of these things I need when I'm doing that. Well, instead of having to pick them out from the other room, I just pick this whole thing up and in we go. I know, a little thing it seems, but I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And it has the potential, if I need a special gift for somebody who's a sewer, I can make another one of those. I mean, it'll take a week, but I can make another one of those. Another thing that I made, though, was another Christmas village. Yes, I need another Christmas village like I need a kick in the head. But this is kind of unique because I made it all out of what's called transparent filament. Yes, as the name suggests, you can pretty much see through it. It's not quite crystal clear, glass clear, but speaking of crystal, it does have a crystal effect. So I created a little video showing you sort of the potential setup of this and how it's going to be lit at Christmas time. And so I'm going to put that in here. So I saw this design on Thingiverse and it was for a Christmas village and they're all 3D printed, and so I decided to do that. But I printed them out of a transparent filament. And this is a filament I get from Matter 3D out in BC. And this is really is transparent. If you look up real close, you can see it's a little bit foggy, but you can see very well through it all. Now, the trees all were made out of the same material, but what I did was I used my E-pen, which is actually a cheap little electric airbrush that works up using markers, and I just sprayed Sharpie ink all over the trees with that. But to smooth it out a little bit, I just used a little rubbing alcohol on a cloth, and that dissolved some of the Sharpie marker and gave me a little bit smoother look. I just thought a little bit of color in the trees would add to the whole scene. I did add some embellishments, these little snowflakes on the front of the church, and if you notice, I have icicles. And the icicles were something that I just cut out using my Cricut and just glued them around. I thought they needed some, little trim, snowy effects. And the little snowman, and he's turned the wrong way, he's really cute. Now, what I did was I added some lights to this as well. So I'm going to just turn them on. And you can see that they glow very nicely. This will look really great as a table decoration at Christmas time. I'm ahead of the game, I guess, with this. But that's one reason why I want to use the transparent filament so that the light would shine through. And it looks pretty good, I think. So I think that's going to look really neat at Christmas time. And I'm going to do a search in the areas on the web where I pick up all of these models and things and see if I can find some other elements that I could add to the Christmas village. And we'll go from there. There's one little tiny snowman. I might try to blow him up a little bigger just to see, because he looks just like two little blobs of that size. But anyways, always having fun. And speaking of which, I also made this. This is a Baroque, not broken, a Baroque flower pot. And you see, you can use it as such if you wish. I did it out of marble filament, so it does have a stone-like look on it. It was made in 3 pieces, and the 3 pieces had to be glued together, which is fine. But I think it turned out really quite nice. So, you know, you can, with the right filament and the right design, make things that have a certain elegance to them. They're just not a piece of crappy plastic. So that's what I've been up to on the 3D corner, and what I'm working on right now is a really cool retro 1950 style looking rocket that is actually mounted on a base that looks like a big billowing cloud of smoke coming from the exhaust, and it's shooting off into space. It's quite large. It's taking me quite a while to make. I'm not going to show it to you until next week, but I think it's kind of cool. Yes, I know, someone said, or as Walter has said, so Stevie's making his toys. Yeah, I am. I like toys. Go figure. Okay, so that takes us to part 2 of the Rolodex book that I created, and so I'll insert that here. So I've pulled out a lot of ephemera that I've had laying around, and I picked out some pieces from my boxes that I think I might be able to incorporate into this Rolodex book album. And so I've got some of Tim Holtz's paper dolls here, and I've got some pre-cut butterflies. I think those came from Forever Memories or something like that. I pulled out a bunch of miscellaneous cards from various ephemera packs that I've had laying around, thinking that these might make nice little inserts, you know, for notes and things. And I also pulled out some of my scrapbook paper, and I have folded it, and I'm going to make it into little booklets. And this is what I'm talking about. Here's a little sample of what I've already made. Just simply put some paper, not very many sheets, just a few pages in here. I've gone over the edges with some distress ink. Actually, it was Memento ink, but same diff. And around the cover. And this was just a strip of scrapbook paper that I cut to size. Then I sewed it in, just a very simple binding, just a couple of stitches, tied it off here on the edge, added this little butterfly from this set on the front, and then I got out something I have not used in a long time, and it's sort of got a nostalgic look to it. I'm just looking for where I put it down. Here it is. A few years ago, they came out with a bunch of these little mini dynamo label makers. You remember these from back in, what, the 60s into the 70s? They were various sizes, much larger, and they were used in offices quite a bit for labeling things. Of course, since then we have computers and we have sticky labels, and we don't really use these. But I think they're kind of cool. And at the time, I bought a whole bunch of these little things. I forget how much they cost, and a whole bunch of different colored tapes to go into them. And I never really used them after that. I think I bought a whole bunch of them to use in a class, and I might have used them in a class once, in an art journaling class. And so they're just sitting here, and I discovered them, and I thought, hey, let's use these. Let's incorporate these. So that's what I've done here with notes on the top of that. So I'm going to make a few of these little card sets. They'll all be different. I've got, you know, this thing that came from, I don't know what it is. It says, your child is committed. Oh, it's an old report card-like thing that came from a Tim Holtz collection. A couple of strips of scrapbook paper. So I'll make a few of those, and I'm also going to make these little library cards. I came across a package. Package of these in about 3 different colors: green, the off-white or yellowish tinge, and white. And I just took some scrapbook paper, folded in half, used a pair of my decorative corner punches on the corners, and then put some Tim Holtz paper dolls in the front, some of those butterflies, and again I used the mini dynamo label maker and put it at the top, remember, and it just sits in there. And the idea is there'll be a bunch of these interspersed in with the other ephemera that I'll stick in here, and I'll just tilt this so you can see it. So there'll be spaces here where people can keep notes or whatever, and that's what I'm really thinking this is becoming. This is really a holder for scraps of paper, scrap notes, things that people want to refer to or remember, write down little lists, shopping lists, or things like that. And out of this pile of ephemera, I have things like that that'll go in here as well. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to concentrate on making a couple more of these. So I'm going to show you the process for doing, we'll start with the little mini journal, if you want to call it that. I suppose it could be used for that. So I'll just get things cleaned up here and show you how I make this. Okay, to make one of these little mini journals, it's very, very simple. In fact, I'm sure you have done this kind of thing many times before, so just bear with me. So I cut a strip of scrapbook paper that I found really interesting. This is a fairly heavy scrapbook paper as well. It's more of a cardstock. So this is going to be the cover of my little mini journal. And I just folded it in half, and I used my bone folder to give it a good crease. Now, this paper did crack a little bit, but that's okay. Sometimes your paper will crack, especially something that's more like a cardstock. And yes, there is a way to avoid the cracking. I could have lightly scored it. That would have helped. Also, it depends on which way the grain of the paper is going, which way you fold it. But I don't mind this at all because I like the little rough edge on here because I think it adds to the vintage look that I'm trying to create. So I have that, and I have the inserts. And I just took 2 pieces of paper. This is paper that I've had around for a long time that came in a box that's meant for resumes. So it's a nice quality. It's almost a linen based paper. And I just took 2 sheets, cut them down, fold them half, and made sure that they fit inside the album. They're slightly smaller than the mini journal cover. And you know what happened? I just fudged it. I cut them, and then I put them in, looked at how much I needed to trim off the top and off the one side, put it in my paper cutter, and just eyeballed it. And that works fine for this. If you want to get really technical, you could take a ruler and measure it out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put a little ink around the edges of all of this to, just to stress it a little bit. I'm just using Memento ink. You could use any ink you've got. Of course, you could use Tim Holtz Distress or Oxide inks. You could use StazOn. Since this is not really going to get wet, I felt this ink would be fine, although I think the Memento ink is water resistant. And I'm just going around. I'm not being very careful about this at all. I'm not even doing the inside pages of this because, doesn't matter. They're getting some on them anyways. You can, if you wish. You could use a lined paper too in this. Again, whatever, moves you. So I'm going to stitch these in here. So I'm just lining it up just roughly, and I'm going to grab some of my little bookbinding tools because I used to bind hardcover books. So I need a needle, a good size one, and I need some wax thread. Now you don't have to have wax thread. You can use whatever you've got laying around the house. Let's try the purple. I think the purple might be fun. And I'm just going to take a little bit off here. I don't know, about 18 inches. That's probably more than enough. Get these out of my way. And I'm just going to thread the needle. Now a wax thread, I use a wax thread because it's easier to pull through. On something this size, it's not really a big deal. It's a little stronger thread that I am using here. It's meant for bookbinding, but you can, as I said, you could use sewing thread, string, twine, whatever you've got laying around. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm going to put a hole in the center of this signature. That's what you call this when they're folded together, and one about 3/4 of an inch roughly from each end. And then I'm just going to place that inside the here, sort of eyeball it to get it centered, and punch through those holes again so it goes through the cover piece. And I think I may have moved on that one. That's no big deal. If I did, I can punch the hole again. Okay, and then I'm just going to bring the thread up through the center hole, if I can find it. There it is. And I'm going to leave
a lengthy tail on it so I can tie it. Then I'm just going to go through one of the hole at the top. It could be the hole at the bottom, it doesn't matter. And then go through the hole at the bottom. Just like so. And back out through the center. Now, if I want the knot on the inside, I could just do this in the opposite way. Instead of starting from the outside and going in, I could start from the inside and go out through the center hole. But I like the knot on the outside. And take it off my needle. Just going to carefully pull it taut. Don't want to rip anything. And tie a knot. And then I'm just going to tie a little bow. And you don't have to tie a bow. You could just leave, you know, tie another double knot sort of a thing to secure it. And I'm just going to make the bow, rented lips here, bow a little smaller. Actually, I'm not going to do that because, oh yeah, I am going to do that because I was going to tie it a double knot, but I think I can do that just from here. I just want to secure it so the bow doesn't come, oops. Oh, that wasn't good, was it? Yeah, let's see if I can loosen that up. Well, okay, let's try this again. I have to admit, I am not the best bow maker in the world. So I'm just going to pull that through down here. I'm just evening them up a little bit. Again, it doesn't matter. Okay, let's be a little bit more careful this time. Another thing about the wax thread, and you can make your own wax thread. If you've got an old candle laying around, just take whatever you're using, your twine or whatever, and just run it through a few passes over the candle, into the candle, so some of the wax transfers to the thread, and it does make it easier to pull through, and it does hold it a little bit more secure. Okay, so I'm good there. So let's move these out and let's talk about embellishing the cover. What will I use? Well, I can go to my butterflies here and do that again, or I could use one of my paper doll people, and you know, you can use whatever embellishment you like. She looks like fun. How about her on a butterfly? How about her with butterfly wings? Oh yes, I like that. So I think she needs a little bit of roughing up on the edges in terms of black ink. And that just hides the white edges of these little die cuts. And I'm going to do the same with the butterfly. And as I said, I think these butterflies probably came from the Dollar Tree or Dollarama. They're not expensive, that's for sure, but they look nice. Okay, I'm just going to use my tape runner to put a little adhesive on the back of this. And we'll set that butterfly right about there. I'm just eyeballing everything. And put our little lady there as well. Now you could use wet glue for this or whatever. And there she is. And now, maybe I'll put a little thingy down here. The other one I called, oops, that came off. Okay, that tells me something. The ink that's, or not the ink, the adhesive on the back of these is not very good, but not to worry. Get out my glue. And of course my glue's stuck up, so let's just poke a hole. Oops. Okay, we might have got a little too much. But we'll wipe off the excess. And I'm just going to take a baby wipe and just wipe that off there. And then that'll be fine, that'll hold it. But that's good to know. Probably because these have been sitting around for a long time, so they probably have lost a lot of their adhesive. So On that one I called it notes. Let's call this reminders. So and I'm just finding each letter. I'm sure you know how one of these work, especially if you're from my generation. We thought these were really cool when I was a kid. I remember when my father got one of these that he was using for his business, and I loved to label things all the time. My father had to keep a good supply of these tapes in stock, but he did work for a business. Reminders. Okay, remind. I think I spelt this wrong. No, I didn't. But now I've got a problem. Can I back up the tape? Well, that was dumb. Anyways, you get the idea. Okay, that's the one problem with them. You can't really back them up. So let's do this right. Actually, you don't have to watch me doing this. I'll come back and show you the final product.
So that takes us now to events in the past week. Well, I already spoke about the whole big move thing with my mom and whatnot. One thing, though, that is bothering me a little bit about my mother is something my sister told me. My sister had called her after I had spoken to my mother a few days later, and my sister texted me and told me that my mother seemed to be a bit confused about what was happening. She had this idea that we were coming over there for a visit, and she didn't seem to understand the move. And I thought that was kind of strange, because I said to my sister, well, no, I explained everything in minute detail to Mom, and she seemed to be fine with it. She seemed to understand. Because when I explain things to my mother, it's the teacher in me. I get her to repeat things back to me, or I ask her certain questions to check her level of understanding. And that's definitely a teacher thing. And, you know, she seemed to be okay with it all. But when my sister's telling me that she seemed confused, she had things all mixed up in that, it made me begin to wonder whether or not my mother is starting to develop the early signs of dementia. I don't know. There is something that I've heard referred to, whether it's the right term or not, called institutional dementia, like when people are, you know, basically living like in a nursing home or in an environment where there's not as much outside stimulus, that this is a form of dementia, some confusion of things that can settle in. And yeah, I would expect that. I mean, even right now, I swear that I've got early signs of dementia because of the COVID thing, because, you know, I have to think, what day is this? And when I'm thinking back as to what I've done on other days, I do get those mixed up. I'm going to blame it on COVID, because otherwise I have to blame it on age, and I'm not ready for that yet. So I'm thinking once she gets into the new residence and that I'll have the doctor there, or the nurse practitioner, I'll ask them to see if they can do some sort of test or something just to check, you know, for signs of dementia. I mean, after all, my father did have dementia, and not that my mother can catch dementia from her husband, but you know, that the dementia led to his passing away too, I think, contributed to it. So yeah, gotta look after my mother, you know. So that's about it. So I have 2 videos of 2 things that happened this week that I want to insert here. One has to do with Walter. Walter was cooking again, so I inserted what he was making. Now, this is what I was saying about my mind going, what was it he was making? Oh, yes, he was making homemade manicotti. And when he makes, sorry, he's going to kill me when he hears this. It isn't manicotti, it's cannelloni. He's making homemade cannelloni. In fact, we have a discussion in this video about what is the difference between cannelloni and manicotti. But he makes his own pasta. It's fresh pasta. He makes the dough and he puts it through the pasta mill and the whole bit. And so I did do a short little video showing you his technique for making cannelloni. So, what's in the pot?
Just some canned pasta sauce.
Oh, canned pasta sauce. And what's
with a little bit of extra spices.
And what's in the oven?
The oven is bread.
Homemade bread. And then I see you have out the pasta making machine. And you have, what's that in your hand?
Pasta dough.
Pasta dough. So, what are you making?
Cannelloni.
Cannelloni. And what are you going to put inside the cannellonis?
Spinach and ricotta cheese and Parmesan cheese.
Ooh, that's what's cooking tonight with Wally. So what are you doing now?
Well, I'm filling my pasta. I have to...
with green stuff.
With green stuff.
What's the green stuff?
I said it was spinach and ricotta cheese and some Parmesan cheese.
Oh, looks like baby poop.
I don't know. I've never seen baby poop.
Yeah. Well, that's what it looks like if you had. So, and I missed getting you, or showing you making out your pasta, rolling out your pasta dough, but he did that obviously. And here he's got one dish kind of ready to go.
And the pasta will bake when it goes in the oven because
it's
raw,
fresh. It's
pasta.
fresh pasta. We only have the best. Manicotti. Oops, I said manicotti. It's cannelloni. What's the difference?
Manicotti is a U.S. invention.
What? Manicotti is a U.S. invention. What do you mean by that?
It's apparently, I read today, that's the difference, that Italians don't make manicotti. They make U.S. people do.
Well, you learn something new every day. So here's how Walter flattens out his dough. He's got it in the pasta maker.
Yeah, I've got an Mercato Atlas 150.
Ooh, that's
which is actually an Italian
right?
pasta maker.
Oh, as opposed to a Chinese one?
Well, I had a really cheap one that I bought somewhere just to try it out, and it all fell apart on me. So I bought this one, and these weren't that particularly expensive. They were about $50, but didn't get motorized, but I just have the hand crank.
Oh, so you get exercise while you're making your pasta.
Yeah.
So how many times do you have to roll your pasta through?
Well, I don't know. I just do it. I just keep doing it until I decide that I like the consistency of it, or the width. So.
Now, is your pasta dough made differently than, say, making some other kind of dough?
I don't usually bother. Like, you're supposed to make it with semolina flour, and I tried it once that way, and I didn't really like the texture. Maybe I had the wrong kind of semolina flour. I don't know what it was, but I should try it again. But right now, I'm just using plain old all-purpose flour. Actually, technically, in Canada, our all-purpose flour is like bread flour. So, and it seems to work out okay.
So what? It's just flour and...
It's flour and eggs and a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of salt.
And that's it.
And I just got the recipe online, so...
Now, do you have to let it do... I guess there's no yeast in it, so it doesn't have to rise or anything.
No.
But you had it in the fridge.
Yeah, I did. I let it cool. I had it. Actually, this is a good recipe that I got, so...
And where did you get that recipe? Online?
I got it online.
Oh.
It was 2 cups of flour, 3 eggs, a teaspoon of salt, and 2 tablespoons of water. And that's it.
Well, it's just that simple. So here's Walter's finished baked loaves, hot out of the oven, with their egg wash. They look quite delicious. And I've had them before, and they're very nice. Anything special you want to say about your loaves?
Actually, they came out bigger than they normally do.
Oh, so size matters. Okay, well, we know you're into size, don't we? And here's the final result. Walter's serving it out. I almost forgot to take video of this part of it. And that's Wally's famous cannelloni. So who knew? I did not know that manicotti was an American invention. And I just thought manicotti was just bigger noodles. So you learn something new every day. So the other thing I've got a video clip from is something that happened. It was just by accident. You know, we have an enclosed sort of deck area, which is placed underneath our main deck. Our house is a raised bungalow, so we have a walkout basement. And this is where our hot tub is. And we've actually done broadcasts, even on Walter Live once, from that area in the nicer weather. Well, I was looking out the patio doors, and there was a little tiny, at first I thought it was a chipmunk, but I think it was a little red squirrel. And he was a baby. I'm pretty sure he was just a baby. And I don't know what he was finding on the carpet out there to eat, but he was doing a very thorough job of licking up crumbs. So he was just cute. I mean, they're destructive little varmints too. So we've had them living under there before. I wonder if there's a nest. I just thought of that. Have to take a look. But anyways, so he seemed to be very content with me filming him. And so I did. So here it is. Well, we've had a little creature come to visit us. In the deck, he's looking for little things to eat. Let's go over here, see if we can get a little better shot of him. There he is. A little chipmunk. Or is he a little squirrel? Actually, I think he might be a little squirrel. He might be just a baby. I'm not really sure. Isn't he cute? I don't know what he's finding to eat on that carpet out there. Oops. Where is he? There he is. Oh, I think he spotted me. Yeah, he's a little squirrel. There he is. He certainly is giving the place a once over. I should take out the vacuum cleaner. Maybe he could clean up under there. Save me the job. He's just a young little guy. So I think he might be a baby. Very cute. Very cute. Really, what can I say? That was just stinking cute. We have a lot of wildlife in our backyard because we back onto a forested area. So we have everything from little squirrels and chipmunks to bunnies to raccoons to turkeys. Yes, turkeys. Coyotes. We have had wolves. I'm just hoping there's no bears. But anyways, yeah, we have a lot of wildlife. But he was a cute little guy. Walter won't let me feed them. Probably rightly so, but still, the chipmunks I would love to feed. Even the squirrels. You know, leave out a few nuts, things like that. Especially chipmunks, because chipmunks, you know, they get really friendly. If you're going to give them some peanuts, you can hold them out into your hand. They'll take them from your hand. And in some cases, when they get a little bit more familiar with you, they'll like run right up on your leg and sit on your leg and munch away at whatever you're feeding them. But then they keep coming back. And you know, in the middle of the night, when you've got one of those little animals banging on your windows going, "Where's my lunch?" That might be a bit much. That was supposed to be funny. Okay, so moving on. What's coming up? Craft and Chat. Yes, it is that time of the month. First Wednesday of every month, we have Craft and Chat. So this Wednesday coming, May the 5th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will have our Craft and Chat. What's Craft and Chat? Well, most people know, but I'll say it again. Craft and Chat is where you come on. I have a Zoom link for it in the show notes. It'll be in these show notes. You connect on that at around 1 o'clock on this coming Wednesday, and we work for about 3 hours. It goes from 1 to 4. You don't have to stay for the whole thing. You can come late. It doesn't matter. It's informal. It's a drop-in. And work on whatever you're working on. It could be sewing. It could be mixed media. It could be art journaling. It could be knitting. It could be crocheting. It could be whatever. Whatever. And we work on our projects. And usually there's some conversation as well. Again, everything is very informal. I don't record it or anything like that. It's basically my therapy because sometimes I feel a little isolated. And so we have Craft and Chat. where we can meet. And, you know, I look forward to seeing the people, the ones who have been the regulars that have been coming out to this since I started it, because I consider them friends. And I want to consider everybody friends. So feel free. If you've never tried it before and you're available, you know, you're not working or something like that, then come on, join us. There's no judgment, nothing. So the note, or the link for the Zoom link for that is in the show notes below, so you can hook in. Hope to see you. All right, so I think that's it. Nothing more to tell you this week. So you know about Craft and Chat. Tomorrow there will be an episode of the Idiot Quilter. At tail end of the week, we'll put up the next episode of So Chatty, and of course, Stephen and Walter Live on Sunday. I would think that all you think I ever do is make videos. It's beginning to feel like that. But unfortunately, when I get off of this one today, I have to clean my house. I hate doing that. But I hate a dirty house even more. So, off we go. So you have a good week. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, and do whatever you have to do to stay safe. So we'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now.